Hi everybody, we're going to do some English now. We're going to continue looking at sentence structures, and we've already covered simple sentences, we've covered compound sentences, so now we're going to look at complex sentences. So what I want you to do is just a quick recap. Which ones are simple, which ones are compound? Off you go. Simple sentences contain one verb. Compound sentences contain two simple sentences or two main clauses that are connected with a coordinated conjunction. So, as simple sentences, pause the video, answer them, off you go. Have an answer. So, there is a big whale in the sea. There is a big whale in the sea. We've got our simple sentence. Verb here is the verb to be. I could play in the sea or in the sand. Now I've spotted a coordinating conjunction. Therefore it must be compound. Driver got a parking ticket for he didn't pay for the car park. In this, I can see a coordinating conjunction here. He didn't pay for the car park, makes sense. Driver got a parking ticket, makes sense. Compound. Very unusual for us to use for. Lots of little ants lived in the colony underneath the ground. We've got one verb here. It is simple. She didn't do the dishes, nor did she wipe the table clean. Verb, conjunction. It is compound. Whoops. It's a compound sentence. Well done if you got those. Let's now have a look at complex sentences. Now this is a complex sentence. What have we included? So we've got a main clause here. The boy opened the fridge. It makes sense on its own. We've got our one verb. He was hungry. We've got another clause here. And in here, we've got a conjunction. And this is a subordinating conjunction. So we know our complex sentences use coordinating conjunctions. So a subordinate clause contains a subject and a verb, but it needs to be attached to a main clause because it cannot make sense on its own. For example, I am not allowed to eat cake makes sense on its own. Until I have had my dinner doesn't make any sense. Yeah, we're using a subordinating conjunction. This bit does not make sense on its own. We need the first main clause. So a complex sentence uses a subordinate clause or a subordinated conjunction. Think of these as a dog and a tail. So a tail doesn't make sense on its own, but a dog without a tail does make sense. You can have two dogs without tails. That would make sense in a compound sentence, but you can't have two tails because that would just be weird and wouldn't make any sense. So for a subordinate clause or a complex sentence, we need a dog and a tail. Now, some of you have noticed you can have your subordinate clause at the beginning. Until I have dinner, comma, I'm not allowed to eat cake. Doesn't matter where it goes, as long as we're using subordinating conjunction. So, here are lists of subordinate clauses. Subordinate conjunctions. Here are lots and lots of different ones. Now, there are way more subordinating conjunctions than there are coordinating conjunctions. Loads. There's even more than this. So some popular ones are because, as, after, so. Interesting that we can use so as coordinating or subordinating. These ones here, wherever, whenever, whereas, whether or not, and until or when. These are the sorts of ones, and if, that we use quite regularly. So you might want to say some of these, you might want to write some of these down in your Magpie book. So let's have a look. As I said previously, the main clause and the subordinate clause can be swapped around. The boy opened the fridge because he was hungry. Remember, boy opened the fridge, so the main clause makes sense on its own. Because he was hungry does not make sense on its own. It needs that first bit. But we can have it at the end, or we can have it at the front. But if you're going to have it at the front, you must have the comma. Because he was hungry, the boy opened the fridge. Now, why would we do this? It's just to make our writing seem a bit more interesting. It's good to have both a standard way and a more exciting way in our writing. We can't have them all with our subordinate clause at the beginning, but it's nice to have it every now and then. So, what I want you to do, pause the video, write out, I want you to match the main clauses to the subordinate clause. Remember, we know which one's the main clause because it makes sense on its own. Because he is unwell is not a main clause. The boy cried with delight is a main clause. So match them up. Let's have a look. Because he was unwell, the boy took some medicine. You could also have the boy took some medicine because he was unwell. He sat on the bench while the birds flew by. While the birds flew by, comma, he sat on the bench. As the woman put on her coat, comma, the dog barked. The dog barked as the woman put on her coat. The boy cried with delight when he scored a goal. When he scored a goal, comma, the boy cried with delight. Now, it's nice. We can have them both ways. Be nice. Nice to see a mixture in the writing. So, what your task is going to be today is you are going to get a picture and I would like you to use some complex sentences. I'm going to show you what I mean. So, we've got a picture here and we've got a guy and he is writing. Whoops, produce that iPad around so I can write. How could we start this? We could have a look at, let's go. How about this? I'm going to start off with a nice until this morning. What do I need? I've got my subordinate clause at the beginning. What do I need? Of course, when I have my subordinate clause at the beginning, I know it's a subordinate clause because I've got to call a subordinating conjunction until this morning. He had no idea that he could walk on water. Now, as we said, we could have that. I could start with, he had no idea that he could walk on water until this morning. But it adds a bit more interest, doesn't it? We could just say, he placed his foot down on the sea, even though he was scared. We might sort of, despite being scared, despite being scared, comma, he placed his shaking boot down glimmering surface of the water. Nice. Now, I've started with subordinate clause twice. Probably don't want to keep doing it because we lose that interest if it's all the same. So I might just put, I might have a the sentence, the water. I mean, I've just spoken about the water. The water is a bit repetitious, is that a word? Repetitive, not repetitious. Repetitive. I could swap the water for it, but in this case I'm not going to. The water held his weight despite, or I've already used despite there, so I might cross that out, even though. Even though what? It shouldn't. Even though he knew that, I'm running out of space, it shouldn't. Now I could write a lot more, and I've got a lot more ideas. I can put, he placed his left foot on the water, a feeling of excitement washed over him, even though he was still a little nervous, comma. He started marching towards the mountainous islands he saw peeking out in the distance. There's so much I could write. I just ran out of space. Now you're going to have lots of space to write. I'm really looking forward to seeing what you come up with. So your task is to write about this picture. I want you to use complex sentences to explain what is happening. Yeah? Now, for a little bit added extra, you can include 2 compound sentences. But what I want you to do, I want you to identify them. I see a lot of people using some really brilliant grammar stuff. I'm just not 100% sure if we know that we're using it. So if you could underline it, you might want to do a colour key. So you might want to do some complex sentences underlined in green, compound underlined in blue. That would just show me. That's for the 3 chili. But if you just want to write it, that would be our 2. Now we've got a writing frame here. That could be for our 1 chili. Try the 2 chili. Try it. And if you're struggling, go to the 1. Or write the 1 chili. And if you think, actually, I could have done that. That was good. Go on to write a new one with using the 2 chili, using your own ideas. Really interested to see what you come up with. The writing has been brilliant so far throughout the